Breaking tonight, we now have live pictures coming back from the search of this suspect's home in the San Bernardino shooting. Jonathan Hunt is live there with the latest. Jonathan?
Megan, the focus right now on Redlands. That is about 5 miles from San Bernardino, where the original shooting happened. Police and other law enforcement personnel moving very slowly, very deliberately around a specific property in Redlands. Our producer on the scene sent us back some video of a robotic vehicle moving towards that property. Our producer Dan Gallo also told us he heard the sound of a small explosion. It sounded like a detonation to him. Clearly, police have some information that has led them to this house, possibly part of the ID that has been floating around for some time now. We have known a specific name for several hours, as have you. We have not said it on air yet. We have not had it confirmed officially, but that name is out there, and we believe that that property may be connected to that name. Separately, they're also surrounding the SUV where the huge gun battle took place. They've been moving in very carefully around there, although they do say that a piece of pipe that was thrown from that SUV before the two suspects in it were shot dead was not an explosive device. Megan?
That is news. Okay, Jonathan, thank you very much. Joining us now with more, Ron Hosko, former Assistant Director of the FBI, and Joshua Katz, former CIA operations officer, who now specializes in Homeland Security and intelligence. Great to see you both. Ron, let me start with you. We're not saying this name of this person because it hasn't been confirmed. Others have gone with it. We're choosing not to until it's been confirmed. However, the question is that the person that they're discussing may have worked for the very bureau that may have been having the conference there that afternoon. And to what extent do you believe the FBI would be looking at the possibility of self-radicalization and that potential in selecting a target?
I think they would absolutely be looking at that and other possibilities, Megan. I was trying to read the words and the thoughts of my friend Dave Bowditch as he spoke earlier, and his tone gives me great pause. It has me believing that
he's the FBI head in L.A.
That's right, that there's a terror nexus to this. Frequently, in so many prior active shooting cases, look at Jared Lochner, look at Adam Lanza up at Sandy Hook, Aaron Alexis here at the Navy Yard, occasion after occasion of active shooter. And very quickly after the scene, the gunpowder, the dust has settled at these scenes, you have an understanding of the drivers, and frequently it's mental illness. We're not hearing that yet. And so you want to take that raw active shooter driver off the table and say, what else was at work here? Was it a hybrid? Was this somebody who he was going to get revenge and then go into other terror attacks? So I'm sure the Bureau is looking, and they'll be working all night tonight on trying to figure out the networks and understand what was going on here.
Josh, what significance, if any, does it have to you that the person found with the male suspect in this SUV was a female?
I think, Megan, what that tells us is that anybody can be a perpetrator and anybody can be a victim. And there's no line here anymore. There's no definitive profile of people that commit these horrible acts. And I think that that's what we really need to understand here, is that anybody can be an attacker, and we all have to be aware.
Is there any, I mean, what happened with that SUV was a shootout in which the two suspects were killed. Now there's a third person who's been detained, and we don't know whether that person's involved in this or not. But how do you imagine the debrief of that person is going right now, Ron?
Well, the Bureau, their MO in engaging in interviews like this is really to try to build some rapport, get the person talking, understand what their drivers are, and work them to the truth. And that may be peeling back layers of lies and initial lies and rebutting those lies, but it's ultimately to get their cooperation. This is a very serious incident. We have multiple dead, multiple homicides here, multiple aggravated batteries on other victims. So there is a real price to be paid, but there's an opportunity for someone to tell us what the entire plot looks like.
And just to confirm what we have on the bottom of the screen. 2 rifles, 2 handguns recovered so far during the investigation. And now the reports of a pipe bomb seem to be falling apart, that maybe a piece of a pipe was thrown and not an actual bomb. Josh, how much should we glean, if anything, from the fact that we saw the robotic bomb detector going into that home moments ago? Would that just be out of an abundance of caution, or would they have had to see something that looks an awful lot like a bomb?
No, I think the police and the SWAT teams and the authorities are really on edge because they don't know what they're walking into. So sending the robot in is out of an abundance of caution. And what I would say is that that explosion or that concussion or whatever it was that people heard could have just also been out of a abundance of caution. So we don't know what we don't know, and we shouldn't jump to any sort of conclusions here, because as you're talking, things are developing in the situation. We're learning more, and things are changing, so we need to proceed carefully.
Absolutely, and we're going to get an actual update from police very soon, so stay tuned for that. Gentlemen, thank you. In the hours since this attack, even before we know the motive, the intent, or even the suspect's identity, there has been a wave of new calls for gun control. And when Republican candidates for president sent out messages calling for support and prayers for the victims, they were attacked in some instances by some commentators. Even the New York Daily News, which is running this cover tomorrow, saying God isn't fixing this, has gotten into it. I'll show you in a second. Dana Perino's here. She was the White House press secretary for President George W. Bush and co-host of The Five. Dana, immediately it turns to gun control. And I think, you know, Americans are, whatever your stance on gun control, they're fed up. They're fed up with the weekly updates on mass killings in the United States.
I think that President Obama could actually find common ground with people on that, but he immediately decided to respond when it actually, because we've seen, as you've seen with the breaking news, even during your hour, Megan, you have developments that are showing America that we still don't know exactly what happened, and this could actually be much more serious than something that we haven't seen before, right? In America, is this something new and different? We don't know that. And so there's this tremendous desire to respond. There's a lot of pressure to respond, but leaders should not comment like the comment section on a website, right? What you want is clarity and calm, and there is merit for leaders, either candidates or the president, to just wait and say, he's been informed, she's been informed, and we will update you as soon as we know more from the authorities.
Because what we hear, you know, the president came out pretty quickly and made a comment about gun control, and that is a cause that is near and dear to many, in particular on the left in this country. However, that can be very alienating to the gun rights supporters in the country, and the best gun laws in the world might very well not have prevented somebody who may be a terrorist from unleashing carnage.
Right, and so then people then who also feel very strongly that their right to have a gun under the Second Amendment, that they would feel like they were being attacked. And so immediately everybody goes to their corners rather than trying to figure out, number one, what happened. Number two, are there any laws on the books that should have been enforced that weren't? And are there laws that we should pass that could have prevented it? And I don't think any of those are known tonight. And when the president speaks, he will always have the bully pulpit. He didn't have to do that tonight, and I think it actually did not do him any favors, and the same I would say for O'Malley and Clinton.
Because people's tensions run high after something like this. This is not that it would make it any better if it were Washington or New York, as we've seen ISIS threaten to target. But this is you know, hometown USA. And everyone, many people in many towns tonight may be feeling on edge that it could happen anywhere.
And there is no harm in expressing the sympathy and the worry and the prayers, I might add, Megan, which also, believe it or not, prayers even became controversial tonight. But I think that all of us should offer our prayers to those families and those who have been shaken by this today. And as we learn more about it, we're going to need more faith, as well as our leaders to be calm and provide us clarity, not reckless comments.
Dana Perino, thank you. So great to see you. Always thoughtful. So the situation in San Bernardino is this. 14 people are dead. Another 17 have been wounded, many seriously, and the death toll could rise. We are keeping our eye on the situation there and waiting for another update from law enforcement. They have promised to come out shortly, and we expect another update, not just on the injured, but also on the status of this third suspect and what is going on in the house of the one suspect that they have been searching. The word has been used, raiding, for some time. Sean Hannity is here live next. I'll be back at midnight. Stay with us.